Sorry, Marco. It's a shambles here.
Wait, I feel like none of us have ever done a podcast before.
I'm having one of those days. It's like an out-of-body experience.
First, Ian punched his mic. I yanked on my mic by the cord a minute earlier. Lisa's dog barked, and then Lisa literally slooped downwards off the screen and disappeared. And said,
maybe
carry on.
Can we export that as a little GIF? Animated GIF we could play.
Welcome to the Honest Designers Show, your transparent look into life as a modern designer. My name's Tom Ross, and I'm the founder at designcuts.com. And this week I'm joined by my fellow Brit and hand lettering expert, Ian Barnard, American retro design expert, Dustin Lee, and the always talented South African illustrator, Lisa Glanz. In this week's episode, we weigh up working for a creative agency versus going it alone as a freelancer. Your hosts have spent time on both sides of the fence, so we aim to bring some real perspective for the pros and cons of each. Let's get into the show. So this week we're talking all about agency life versus the life of a freelancer. So what are the main differences? Is one better than the other? What are the upsides, the downsides, and everything in between of working full-time as part of a proper design team versus going it alone, doing the whole lone wolf thing? So I'm going to open this up, as I always do, but correct me if I'm wrong here, guys. I think all three of you have either worked as part of an agency or certainly within a team, like full-time design team. And all four of us have done the freelance thing.
Yes, done both. Yep.
Cool. Both sides of the fence then. I like this.
Both sides.
Cool. I'm going to throw it up to Lisa because, we don't hear enough from Lisa on the show.
You need to be kind to the only girl.
Exactly.
But I feel like people will keep saying that until it's just the Lisa show. I really feel like that. They'll be like, that's enough, Lisa, once we all just shut up.
Yeah. The Lisa show with just Tom doing an intro and us saying goodbye at the end.
And here's Lisa. And then every so often we'll just be like, great idea, Lisa.
Give the people what they want. It's fine.
Look at that. You couldn't help yourself. You just had to tease me. Look at that.
Well, I'm jealous. You're so popular. You're so nice. Everyone likes you. You're the best. You're smarter than me.
Your products are more popular.
I think he's going to pull your pigtails in a minute, Lisa.
I can see that. Oh, goodness.
Okay,
so what's the question?
Yeah, what are your thoughts? Having worked within a full-time team and being a freelancer, first of all, have you got any preference? And if so, why?
Well, definitely working on my own is my preference. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the best option. But for me, it works out best because I'm a pretty hard worker. So I'm not going to... Sorry. that sounded off... That came off really snarky. Sorry. Because what I mean by that is I put in 110%. So it may as well be for me and not somebody else. I think when you're working for somebody else, you can, if you're kind of like a lazy person, you can get by, which is really awesome. I mean, who doesn't want to be paid a salary for doing just enough,
Was that happening on your team?
Of course. There's a whole lot of people out there that are just doing enough just to get their salary. So
did you not maybe have a bad team?
No, I reckon it's a common thing in every team, unless I'm deluded. But
I was going to say, because I'm very proud. I feel like we've kind of got the dream team where there aren't any weak links.
That's because you've been completely responsible for hiring. So if you have been working for somebody who's been hiring, I mean that you don't control that. So you could end up with people 20,
like us,
30%. Yeah, I mean 30% are slackers, and they do.
Do you
just
feel like that
enough.
about the show, Lisa? Like you're sort of carrying the show. And...
Like there's a subliminal message.
But like
there.
by definition, that has to happen. Like there's always going to be a 1% or 10% of the top performers. So by definition, all of us are like mediocre except for those. Like just by the law, like percentages, or that's a law.
Yeah, I suppose.
It's very
so.
true. Yeah.
I suppose. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if you're the kind of person that like goes all out, you may as well do it for yourself. I think the good side about working for somebody is you get paid a salary no matter what. Generally, you get time off that you don't have to worry about work while you're on holiday. You're not responsible for the business side of stuff. You just get to work and you do your job and you go home. Generally. So yeah, they're obviously pros. And
you still haven't touched on the team as a pro, only a negative. You're a true lone wolf here.
You said it wasn't for everybody, but it is for some people, and then you just like totally crushed it.
Oh, sorry. But I mean, obviously it's great working with people because like you can bounce ideas off and stuff like that. But
that sounded nearly sincere. Yeah.
But okay, so if I could cut in as I just like force myself in here.
Please save me.
Here's, I think, the real advantage of working for someone else is that you finish your work, you go home, and it is done. You can watch Netflix, you can hang out with your kids, you can ride your bike, you can do all your stuff.
Yes.
You don't have to worry. It's the boss's job, to worry about it, right? Like, and sometimes I'll be like working, I'll be like, an email comes in at like 9:00 and the person's angry and you feel like you need to help them right away. And you're like, oh, I wish I worked for somebody.
I know.
That's the big advantage, right? Like,
yeah, but I'm going to play devil's advocate. I actually think we're increasingly in a society that encourages workaholics. And whilst we don't do that, I think it's very big, specifically in kind of pockets of, London and certain cities around the world and certain organizations. Like the reason Google equipped their office to be so homely and cool is because they want it to be like a home for the employees where they can stay there all night working if they need to. And I'm just watching the Netflix documentary at the moment about everyone being addicted to Adderall and all these drugs which are like performance enhancers, and a lot of that is linked into work as well, and obviously that goes across all kinds of sectors. But the point being is I think it's almost becoming an archaic ideology that you leave your work at the door and that you clock off at 5, and that's the benefit of being an employee. I think it's increasingly getting to the point where employees actually have to act in a more entrepreneurial way, but without all of the upsides that entrepreneurs benefit from, maybe.
Don't you think the whole thing is kind of sick too, though? Like, I feel like we weren't born to like spend our days toiling and working.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess maybe some of it's a cultural thing, because I know there's entire countries where people are much more relaxed and laid back, and good for them. And that's very envious. It's like,
I heard Denmark.
Anytime. Yeah, you get countries like that, and then also if you go to places like the Caribbean, they seem to have like a really amazing work-life balance. And why wouldn't you when you're surrounded by that beautiful country? But I think there's a lot of Western countries where people are just working themselves to death, including designers, and so you almost can't escape that. That's not just a burden of being a freelancer anymore.
Things I miss about being a freelancer compared to working for an agency is it's just the banter you get with other people. Because we used to work in an open plan office, and you just, you'd be working away and you'd just be chatting about things, whether it's something you're watching TV or just joking around. We used to have a specific portion of the website, and it was called the gadding zone, where we would just like upload games to it that people could, like, even people visiting the website, externally, could go on and play these games because it was just part of who we were. We'd have a ramp that was going down into the studio, and we'd go on our chairs and like race chairs and stuff like that.
Nice.
And and like we'd cut each other's hair, and it was just like, you'd do the work, but there was also that fun side of badgering my boss to give us some money to go down the shop and get a load of donuts and stuff like that. It was it was really good fun, and I have really fond memories of that, and that's the sort of stuff I miss, just me being on my own, even though I interact with people like you guys. You know, just something about being with other people and just having that, you know, face-to-face relationships.
I completely agree with you, Ian. And even though Design Cuts is obviously not an agency, it is a full-time creative team. And I've gone the other way from you guys. So you've all kind of shifted away from agency life and gone freelance. I've gone the opposite way, and I was freelance most of my life and transitioned into a full office and a team. And I much prefer it this way. I love our team. Like, they're great. Like, the atmosphere is awesome. You can bounce ideas off people, as Lisa said, and I think we almost need to overstate that point, because as creatives, that is the best thing in the world. Like, even if I feel really confident about a piece of work, having Matt, our creative director there, who I know is ridiculously experienced, it is so invaluable to get that second pair of eyes. And he does the same thing with me, and we always notice something the other one's missed and bring something new to the table. And that's not like every 5 projects, that's every time we show each other anything.
When you could
take it to that next level.
Same idea, take it to the next level. You can do bigger things that you couldn't do as an individual. You know, like with your team, you have a video editor, you have like, I don't even know how many people you have. Honestly, sometimes I'm totally lost in how many employees you have right now, but
it's 10, I think.
Oh yeah, okay. So like you can like do like epic things, right? Like that would be hard for another person to do, even if they knew contractors. Like that's a cool thing. Like you can be part of such bigger things in a way that might be nearly impossible to do out of your home.
Yeah, and there's a major advantage of, I mean, so much gets lost in translation. So even if you are working with a team, but remotely, because you're freelance and your client has asked you, look, we're working with this team to do this for us, and you're doing the design part. Just having conversations either on the phone or via email or whatever, you can miss so many like things and nuances, and that's how mistakes happen. So it definitely has a major advantage if you can actually sit next to the person and, you know, discuss something creative. I mean, I'm just thinking of Julie, the girl that she's not a girl, but she's a girl, but the person that I've employed to do, you know, to help me, my assistants and everything. I'd just love it if she was in the same room as me, but it's not possible, because you miss out on a whole lot of stuff, as you said, either the banter or throwing ideas around or getting a concept across, or
it adds structure to your day as well. So
it does.
All of that banter and that interaction with your teammates, whilst I usually stay late, just having that kind of 9 to 5 structure for most people around me makes you so much more sane. Because I know when you're freelancing and you've got that kind of tunnel vision on a project, you lose track of what day it is. You're there, you're like, oh, I haven't showered in 2 days, and I'm pretty sure it's like 2 in the afternoon, but I have no idea. And you get really, really lost in that really easily. And I think there is a reason why humans tend to embrace routine and structure, because I think it's inherently good for us.
Actually, that's a good point. I never thought of that as an advantage, because just the fact that, like, if Joe sitting next to you goes and takes his lunch, you kind of reminded, oh, okay, it's lunchtime. I should go and eat and take that break. And
can I say I've never missed lunchtime.
Me neither. Like,
I have.
There's not like, oh, I forgot to have lunch today. I was like, who? Like, I've never said, oh, I forgot to have lunch. It's like
I have. I've had that this week. I've been so busy. It gets to like 5 p.m. and I'm like, oh no, I need to like eat lunch now, because it's been so nonstop. And
I think it's because of kids, though, because I do the same thing. Like, that's a little bit of time in the day that I can sit down with my kids and my wife and
of course, yeah, okay.
do that.
But you see, but that's the thing. It's almost like being in an office. So it's like a routine of your office, essentially.
Yeah. Okay, so
cool.
I've got a random one, and maybe some of the listeners can empathize with this. But I found after so many years of freelancing, you start actually freaking out about your social skills, because I got to the point where the only people I was ever seeing was my close friends. And I was so incredibly familiar with them, we could just like goof around and be stupid. But I was pretty much never interacting with strangers. And so I think I forgot how to make small talk. I just forgot all of these social norms because I never ever did it. I was either in this tunnel vision, like in the darkness of my bedroom, working away in front of a screen, or I was out having a good time with my lifelong friends. And when we first set up our office, we were in the corner of a wider corporate. So I was surrounded by like 50 or 60 people overnight and didn't know any of them.
Mm-hmm.
And before I know it, I'm like making tea in the office kitchen, having the same small talk conversation with people. And it was just the most bizarre experience. And I truthfully, I sucked at it at first. I found it really uncomfortable. I didn't know what to say. And I felt like really socially just rubbish, I guess. And I was like, oh, I feel like some loser or something. Like I don't know how to do this. And it's only after years of doing it and now being like surrounded by people every day.
And it's people you wouldn't normally choose too. I mean, maybe not in your case since you're the boss,
right?
But well, no, and I mean that in a good way. Like it like exercises you being around fresh, unique people that you might not otherwise choose, which is really, I think, good.
100%. I was actually at the end of my freelancing career, I was getting really jealous of my friends who had stable jobs because I could actually see it benefiting them. Like some of them had gone from kind of semi-shy students to like really confident, extroverted adults because they were working with so many people every day. And that naturally happened. And I was there still just like solo in my bedroom being like, oh, that looks nice from an outside perspective.
And hey, I just looked it up. According to thebustle.com, 15% of romantic relationships happen at work. So
there you go. As well.
It's so weird you mentioned that because this past weekend I did a 10K race with a friend of mine, and literally there were like 20,000 people who entered this race, and I said to her while we were standing there waiting for the gun to go off, I said, I don't get out enough because, I mean, she eventually was saying, can you just shut up? Because the things I was saying, I mean, my filter's broken. It's weird. You do lose that, Tom.
On that note, and we're going really like into, I guess, social psychology here, but it is relevant.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of freelancers hopefully listening, like nodding along right now. But I actually find working with a team, it gives you greater perspective on people in general. So forget your own social skills. It gives you better awareness because
that's true.
With your best friends, you know, you're probably inherently quite similar people. You've got similar values and so on. And when you've got a team around you, they can be great people, but they're all completely different. And some of them might be quite different from you. And just having them all, they've all got their own lives and their own hobbies and views and sense of humor and stuff like that. And I think being surrounded by that diversity every day makes you a more rounded person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also more tolerant because you're exposed to a diversity of personalities and people and how they think. Yeah.
Yeah, and even diversity of, I kind of joke that our team is like the UN or something like that. It's just so diverse in terms of where people are from, like what countries they're from and stuff, which I love. But again, it's just way more interesting. So Ian, kind of back to you then, mate. What are your thoughts in terms of, have you got a preference?
Ian's got this big smile on his face.
My preference now, I suppose, I don't feel like I go back the other way from freelance to being at an agency, being employed. Something I did enjoy, which was like an advantage, you know, of being freelance, was freelancing for an agency, and so going in and getting the best of that sort of, you know. So it was for like when I first started freelancing, I was doing a bit of work for my old company because they knew my skill set. And so I could just drop in there and it would work really well. And so I'd get the advantages of being in that environment, but also the advantages of being freelance as well. And I suppose it's a bit different now because it's changed and I'm not solely doing like client work, I'm doing product selling. It sort of feels a bit like I'm on a different stage.
So something I've been thinking a lot about lately is with being self-employed and being a freelancer, I've been listening to a few podcasts about this, and people who do it almost say you need to be almost a bit of a masochist to actually inflict it on yourself because of all the stress that goes with it and what you put yourself through. Like, no normal person would actually be willing to do that.
Oh,
would you guys agree with that? So when we're saying like agency versus freelancer, for me it's almost like, well, agency is kind of the clear option unless something is actually wrong with you.
Yeah,
as is the case with all four of us.
I've mentioned before that I have anxiety and panic attacks, like diagnosed ones, right? So a couple of years ago, I went to a therapist to essentially help me to manage my panic attacks. And when I talked to him and told him what I did, and I run my own business, he kind of thought maybe I was faking it for drugs, or I don't even know what he thought, because he was like, why would you do something like that causes panic attacks if you don't want to have, if you're prone to panic attacks? And it's
this same podcast I'm thinking of, it's more about business, and it was saying that the host and every entrepreneur and self-employed person he knows gets anxiety. Like, it's that common. So you're essentially you're signing up for some degree of anxiety.
And it's worth noting too that, like, if you don't succeed, you'll be bummed, and if you do succeed, you'll ruin yourself for work forever. And then you'll be forced to go down that path. Like, now that I've done this, I mean, if I had to, I would go work at the McDonald's or do what I need to do to help my family. But you ruin yourself. Like, don't you guys feel that way too? It would be so hard to go back somewhere and work for a boss.
Oh yeah, it's like, once you've crossed that line, there's no going back. It's like you close that door.
Yeah.
But it makes no sense, because on paper it's almost the more attractive option.
Yeah.
But clearly there is some wiring. Right?
Just like, be careful what you wish for.
It's insidious, because it's not like you go from
what's insidious?
This position to like freelance and then it's hell. It's insidious. It's like slowly, like, chews its way into your life, and the more successful you get. Sorry if everyone can hear that, it's actually just thunder. The more successful you get, it becomes like, as you said, it's like this vicious circle, and it just gets more anxiety and so on and so on. But obviously there are pluses to it. They're massive pluses. Otherwise we wouldn't be doing it.
Well, you say that. I think a lot of the pluses are almost delusional. So where it's like, oh, you don't have to work for a boss.
Tom, don't kill my dream.
No, I'm sorry. I'm going.
Look, Dustin's just hanging on by a thread.
I am, man. Yeah, the other day I was like, this needs to stop. I was like, please stop. God, please stop this.
Seriously, think of like the most common things that freelancers cite as good reasons. They're like, you don't have to work for a boss. It's like, but you're your own worst boss. Like, you're a more stressful boss than any boss could be to you.
Yeah,
in terms of what you impose on yourself. Or it's like, oh, you get freedom with your time. And it's like, no, you don't. You get less time than you ever had. So again, I can't really think of a valid reason for freelancing, but
here's how it is with like being your own boss. So when you work for somebody else, you work your hours, you do your time, and you do your time quite literally like prison. You do your time, and they give you money for it, right?
Yeah.
And then you go home and you're fine. And the problem with the working for yourself is it's the whole monkey trap thing, where they put the banana into the trap and then the monkey reaches into the trap and then they catch him because he won't let go of the banana. So when you run your own business, you reach into the trap and there's money in there, and then you don't want to let go of it, so you can't get your hand out of the cage like an idiot. And so then you're just trapped like a dumb monkey, like by this cage. And you can't get out because you won't let go of the money, because you won't let go of the banana. That's how I feel. Like,
okay, well, you see,
do you guys relate to that, or am I insane?
No, I mean,
okay. Totally.
I have to be honest. My banana is not the money, so I relate to what you're saying. But what the reason why I'm doing it, and the reason why I still fight to want to do it, is the freedom to express myself creatively. Because when you work for somebody else,
then why don't you just give your stuff away for free?
Well, obviously you have to eat.
Okay, so you are doing it partially for the money.
Well, obviously.
Well, you said you weren't. You said you were doing it just for the creative fulfillment. as you wear like as she's wearing pearl necklace and like golden rings on her fingers, she tells us it's for the creative film filming.
Dustin's being harsh. Lisa, I totally get what you mean. You would not be afforded the privilege, and it is a privilege, to be able to sit and draw these amazing creatures and stuff you love doing.
Exactly.
Anywhere else.
I mean, for me, that was the main goal, the main dream that I was after. And yes, there's the cushiness of like 9 to 5, okay, well, whatever the hours are, you get paid, you go home, you don't have to think about it, all those advantages. But for me, it was exactly as Dustin said. It's like a prison sentence. You know, you have to be at work, you have to do this, you have to design that way, and it just starts you feel trapped, you feel like you're in prison, like creatively. That's how I felt anyway. And for me, it was, I had to get out. So,
and I think creativity flows through your veins, and so to have that stifled to any degree or imposed on you, I can't see it being a good fit for you.
How I felt about it was that when I was employed, I was designing for my employer, not for what I thought was the best design. So I was designed to please them and what they thought was good enough for the client, rather than me thinking this is what I think the client should have.
Yeah.
So I felt that I wasn't being truly 100% myself in my design while being employed. But when you go freelance, it's solely you, and what you're designing is what you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
That's my feeling. Not everyone feels that, but I just felt that I struggled with working for someone else is the fact that my designs were, you know, they like it this way, so I'm going to design that way because I get an easier life, sort of thing.
And you're often following somebody else's creative vision when you work, you know, in a company. You're not your own, unless of course you're lucky enough to be, say, creative director. But even that, you have to answer to the editor or whatever, you know, whoever's.
Or if you're very lucky and you align with your creative director, that's kind of the dream, I guess.
Yeah, I
if
guess
you're on
so.
the same page.
And but that's not always the case. And I mean, I just remember working at a magazine, and the most frustrating thing was doing the cover design, which I think I've mentioned before. That whole the day that it was cover design day, it was horrible. I mean, you had literally 5 people standing behind you, and all you really were was the monkey on the computer pushing the words around. You weren't designing at all, you know? And it just freaked me out. It freaked me out big time. Yeah.
I think maybe I'm not trying to be quite so pro agency here. And to be honest, maybe I'm just saying it because it's the unknown, because I'm the only one out of the 4 of us who hasn't done it. I've obviously got the team thing now.
Do you feel like a weird conflict of interest because you have a team? Like, does it, because like I feel like since you have a team, like to be like working for someone is rubbish would be like insane for you to say, like even if you thought it inside.
No, like to be honest, my whole thing with this is the Honest Designers show. Like I will just be completely candid, and we always have been. Even if it could be detrimental, I can't be filtered on this show.
Yeah, then it's not an Honest Designer show.
There you go, folks. That's why you are the man.
I think another kind of pro team thing is learning and developing your skills. So I think maybe you 3, if you want to be a freelancer, I think there's a lot to be said for working in-house somewhere first, learning from people who are more experienced and better than you, being able to bounce ideas off people, kind of accelerating your own development, and then going and freelancing. And that seems to have really benefited you guys. Whereas, because I did it the other way, I think I was more reliant probably on trial and error, and so probably developed slower with my actual design skills. This is kind of similar to when we chatted about the formal education versus self-taught, right?
Yes.
Same principle.
Actually, now that you mention that, I can see why you probably would prefer the group thing now, you know, coming from, you know, having only done freelance beforehand. Because as you said, it's like you were probably in the dark a lot of the time, you know?
Completely.
And
you're there with like some, you know, cheap looking YouTube video from a 15-year-old trying to show you how to do something on Photoshop. Like, it's not the same as having a 20-year veteran creative director take you under their wing.
Yeah, that's true.
I think don't you guys think too, because all four of us in one way or another work for ourselves to some degree, that there's a bias towards justifying why, like, we might think it's better. Because I know people that work for as an employee somewhere, and they clearly feel like, man, it's a sucker's job to like work for yourself. Like, you have to deal with all this stuff. Like, this happens. Like, you never get to relax. I want to be able to do all these other things. So I'm curious what you guys think. Do you guys think there's a bias?
I think I can understand why you think that, but if you actually ask the hard question of, would you ever go back and be employed? I'm sure every single one of us would say no. So there's got to be a reason why we're saying no.
Okay, I've got kind of an example. So I never worked for an agency, but this is when I was quite young. An agency outsourced to me. So I effectively was working for an agency, but just remotely and as a freelancer. And they would send me a prolific amount of projects. They would pay me very, very little, and I'd turn them around very quickly. But I was happy to do it because I was young and eager and needed the money and so on. But doing that was great experience, and it gave me a whole variety of different clients they had, and developed my skills. But that was probably my least favorite dynamic of working, because having that middleman of the agency actually made it more unpleasant for me than when I went direct to the client myself and I was doing the interacting with them, the kind of face-to-face with them. I was able to have complete autonomy over the project. And yes, they might not like things or want revisions, but I could kind of guide it. Whereas when it was the agency, it literally was like monkey see, monkey do kind of thing is how it felt. So, Dustin, you tend to be a philosophical chap. Shall we? I feel like we need to kind of big up the freelance a little bit more, because I would guess the majority of our listeners are freelancers. I don't think that many, I could be wrong, but I would guess not that many are actually employed as part of an agency. Just seeing who interacts with the show on social media and stuff, there's a lot of freelance, like illustrators and graphic designers and letterers and stuff. So how can we big up the freelancers some more?
How can we what?
Big up the freelance lifestyle some more rather, and not be so down on it.
Well, you're the one down on it. We were like quite positive.
Yeah, I know, but I'm trying to dig myself out of a hole. I need some help here.
Here's all of it for me in a microcosm, but it expands into the macrocosm of it for me. I remember working at the bank as a personal banker. Most boring freaking job ever. Don't ever do it. If anyone's thinking about it right now or on the fence, it's not worth it. I remember sitting at my desk in a strip mall as the personal banker with, windows, as buildings do have. And I would see people when I went on my lunch break, or I'd see people through the window walk into the coffee shop or walking around in the store. And I kept thinking to myself, how are all these people walking around doing stuff? I don't understand. Don't you guys have to make money like I do? What? Like, are you all independently wealthy? And I was so annoyed because I was like, man, they can take naps when they want to. They can go get coffee with someone when they want to. And when you freelance, you could do that. It's so great. I can stop to go watch. You guys have this great British show called Duck and I can't remember the name. Anyways, my kids love it. Something in Duck. But I can go watch that with them. Like, I can go to the store in the middle of the day. I could do all those things. It's just the looseness of being able to adjust things feels so much better than having to ask someone if you may leave.
So even if you're working longer hours, the fact that you can actually adjust things is still preferable for you.
That's easily, yeah. Well, plus two, that, and then the fact that you control your money more. So I think when you work for an agency or anyone and you see, oh my gosh, when you see how much the project made, the business, sometimes you're like, wow, I don't make any more, even though this made 5 times as much as a regular project we do. Whereas when you work for yourself and something does 5 times as well, all of a sudden, it's raining money, baby. Like it feels so good. You know what I mean? So that's great. But then it kind of sucks like when that doesn't happen and like no one buys it. But it feels so good to
swings and
control it.
roundabouts. But yeah, I guess that's definitely a valid point. As a freelancer, your margins are going to be significantly better. When you work for a company, yes, they might do really well on a project, but obviously there's a billion costs behind the scenes and everything going on there. It is really refreshing when you're a freelancer, you get paid $5,000 for a project and your profit on that is $5,000 minus like your modem bill for that month or whatever. Like it's just insane.
Yeah. And that's amazing.
And also I found that I was like, you know, the pain of going through asking for a pay rise, appraisals. Is that something you have in the US, Dustin?
On houses.
Sorry?
On houses, people do appraisals or like antiques.
Do you not get reviews like from your boss where they sit down and let you know how you
yearly review, saying where you're doing well, where you could improve.
Yeah, I think they call those reviews or annual reviews and stuff.
Yeah, so I'd hate doing those as well because I was just like I didn't want to have to think about my year and set goals and stuff like that.
We're doing ours next week, but we actually do them every month, and I think what's interesting is a lot of it depends on the company. So I have a lot of friends who work for teams that they can't stand, but that doesn't mean all teams are bad. The same thing, I totally hear you. I can already imagine what your appraisals might have looked like, but I know with us, it's more an opportunity for them to actually voice like how things are going, but also, you know, otherwise I wouldn't be able to fix things for them and stuff like that. So you can kind of get positive and negative on both sides. With any of the pros or cons, they're probably not ubiquitous. They don't apply to absolutely every scenario. There's probably freelancers who are over the moon happy, agency people that are over the moon happy, and then people in both camps that are miserable too. So I guess half of it depends like what kind of person you are and what suits you, and the other half depends on maybe you just got unlucky. If you're hating freelancing, maybe it's not you. Maybe your clients suck and you need new clients. Or if you're in an agency and you're miserable, maybe your team sucks or your boss sucks. You need to get a new team.
Yeah, I think it really is like a personality match, because if you value having some free time away, if you value relationships with a lot of people, if you value growing through like diverse people you're around, then like an agency is probably no question going to make you a happier person. If you value freedom, you value being able to control things, and you value being able to control a little more of your income, then maybe freelancing or making your own little business is the way to go. It's all what you value in life, really, right?
It is. Yeah.
I feel like we need one of those tests you got at school where you fill out a questionnaire and it spits out like, here's the one which is for you. We should totally create that. So to Design Cuts team members listening to this episode for edit, please make a note. We should develop that tool.
Do you guys remember what it told you should be? I remember it would always tell you these ridiculous things.
Yeah, mine was so accurate though. Mine came up with 2 front runners. It was graphic designer and advertising.
Gosh,
Nailed it.
In my day, I don't even think that what a graphic designer was.
What was it? My girlfriend got a hilarious one. It was literally something like you should work in a funeral parlor or something like that.
What?
A teacher.
Yeah. Which is weird.
Mine was like social worker or something like that. That would be totally me damaging society.
No, I could see you being empathetic.
Maybe a probation officer, like making people's life miserable. I can't picture myself like sitting and passing Kleenexes to people.
I could see you totally sat with your guitar around a campfire playing Kumbaya, being like, guess what, guys? You know how I know what you're going through? Because 10 years ago, I was on drugs. Like,
and I wrote a song about it.
You're actually right. That's true. Maybe that is it. I'd be like, I feel your pain. I am flawed. Yeah.
I think the real celebration today is rebirth, my friends.
Yes. I think it is. Freedom is within.
Freedom.
It's like the book The Alchemist, where he travels all around the world, right, to find his treasure, and then discovers when he comes back home that the treasure was buried amongst below him the entire time. Spoiler alert! After I already did the spoiler.
Yeah. So is that Paulo Coelho, or have you said?
Yeah. Love that guy.
Yeah, it's a cool book.
Do you know that that's the second verse of music that you've quoted tonight, Dustin, from a song?
No, that's a book.
No, I'm saying not that, not the books. The Freedom Within.
I didn't know that was a song. Yeah. What song is that?
There is freedom within. There's freedom without.
Can you sing a little bit of it?
Is
that 80s one? The freedom within.
Oh yeah, I know that song.
Is it that 80s one? Dun,
yep.
dun,
90s.
Dun.
It's 90s, I think. Yeah.
Oh.
From Australia.
Time is becoming a.
No, New Zealand. I can't remember. Don't want to offend.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's why you would know it, Justin. I don't know. Yeah.
I can play it in my head and it sounds perfectly in tune, but I know if I open my mouth and try to sing it, it would sound like a dying cat.
No, it is. It's kind of like how it's like, yeah, it's like there is freedom within, there is freedom without.
There is freedom.
Yeah, it's a good song.
I don't know the next words. Something.
Is that either I don't dream it's over or
yes? Hey now, hey now.
Yes.
That's going to be stuck in my head now. Okay, so the bottom line is, if you're debating freelancing versus agency work, put on a bit of Crowded House, get introspective, and find the answers.
I like that. Yeah.
So have we got any? Well, it's been a while since we've done the quickfire closing round. So, quickfire, I guess, on both sides of the fence. Final thoughts: agency life versus freelancing. Ding, ding, ding.
I've got something. I'm all about finding your niche, but the problem with freelance is that it's good to have your niche in the creative area, but then you have to be a jack of all trades in terms of like the business side of stuff. So the accountant, bookkeeper, the project manager, the account handler, all the stuff that you took for granted while you were employed, you have to do yourself. And you're just like, man, that's a lot of work.
I like it. So I'm going to keep a tally here on my fingers. So that's one love to agency. Dustin, you're up next.
I would say that being a freelancer is romanticized and like looked up to or made to sound awesome. And I think that there's dignity and awesomeness in being an employee that is absolutely amazing. And I think as a society, we need to do a better job of glorifying how great that actually is to do those things. That is just as good as being a freelancer. Freelancers or people that run businesses are no better, no specialer, deserve no place higher up in the line than anyone else.
No, definitely not.
That is incredibly well said. And
yeah,
I think it's very important to say that because you're totally right. It's glamorized, especially on social media, where it's like, I quit the 9-to-5 grind, man, and now I'm doing my own thing, and I'm a better person because of it. And it's exactly so wrong. No, I'm so glad you said that.
I mean, as much as you have challenges as a freelancer, you also have to face some seriously difficult things working for somebody. So it's, in my opinion, it's an equal battle. If we were talking battle against battle, but yeah, it's
perfect example of this. I'm sorry, really quick. Perfect example of this is you guys sent me this amazing birthday video thing from Design Cuts, right? There was all these people behind that were people that work for you, and they all did something so special that was so valuable and so important, something I will remember forever. And it had absolutely nothing to do with whether they own the business or not. It was something really important that they, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, that kind of thing is more important than whether you could get a freelance client or not.
It's true. I think the other thing to mention is what I think you're trying to say, Dustin, is that the work you're doing while you're being employed is just as special as the work you're doing as a freelancer. I mean, you can't undermine that. I mean, even if you're literally putting catalogs together, that's an important document that has to go out. A client needs it. It's just as important as doing some awesome logo for some contemporary company that you'd never get to do if you were employed. So you can't, you can't undermine both. They're definitely important. I think what it boils down to is your personality type. If you, as you said, the kind of type that feels like kind of stuck and jailed and whatever, working for somebody, then the freelance life is your bag. But it's not an easy road. Definitely not. If you struggle to be self-motivated and you think you're going to, get up every day, work in your pajamas, maybe do a job, maybe not because you don't feel like it, then freelance is not for you. It's a personality thing, I think.
I'm glad you touched on the clients, actually, because I actually would say agencies probably open up doors to working with bigger, more exciting clients most of the time, unless you're a wildly successful freelancer. For example, we've got a young girl, Ali, who I chatted with earlier today, actually, and she does a lot of freelance work for us with design previews and stuff like that. She got to re-engineer and redesign all of the presentation for Futura font. And I'm pretty sure she's like 18 or something. She's like a fresh grad student and got to work on this, like one of the biggest fonts of the last century, which then went out to a massive audience and tons of people saw her work. And you wouldn't get to do that. Actually, I've kind of undermined my argument because she is a freelancer. So what am I talking about? But you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like often a company can open up the doors to bigger clients than you could if you were literally on your own and not connected to a company in any way.
Right. But she's acting in the way of a, like you're saying, an agency person.
Yeah, it's almost like we have her in-house, even though she's technically freelancing for us.
She's getting advantages of that, right?
Yes. But yeah, I think I totally agree with you guys in that the work is the constant. And I think most of this episode, we've talked about stuff that's on the periphery, whether it's personality fit or office politics or teams or bosses. Like all of that stuff kind of fades away when at the end of the day, you realize wherever you work, you're getting paid to design stuff. And if you're at your very core a designer, that's the greatest thing on earth. And none of that stuff ultimately matters half as much as the fact you're getting to do what you love.
Yes, well said.
I think, well, yeah, that's it from us, I guess. And thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. We will see. I watched I Love You Man recently with my best friend, and he'd never seen it. So we will see you there, or we will see you on another time next week.
We will see you on another time.
Laters on the Menjay.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. We hope that it got you thinking about which career choice is best for you, or at least allowed you to get some fresh context on where you're at currently. As always, you can find full show notes for this episode over at honestdesigners.com, or find us over on iTunes by searching for The Honest Designers Show. If today's episode helped you, it would mean so much to us if you took just a moment to leave us a quick review over on iTunes, as this is one of the best ways for your fellow designers to discover the show. Thanks as always for tuning in. We really appreciate it, and we will see you next week right here on The Honest Designers Show.